Welcome to NIT International. Russia has faced global condemnation after a deliberate attack on the electrical transformer powering the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, sparking fears of a potential nuclear disaster. Ukrainian officials are calling for immediate action by the International Atomic Energy Agency to prevent further escalation. Now let's dive into the details. The latest statement from the Ukrainian Energy Ministry has made Russia the focus of criticism all over the world. The electrical transformer supplying energy to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was destroyed as a result of a deliberate attack by the occupying Russian forces. After the attack, which caused a temporary power outage throughout the power plant, the whole world was faced with the danger of experiencing one of the biggest nuclear disasters since Chernobyl. The statements of the Kyiv authorities, who stated that a global crisis will occur if the decision of the International Atomic Energy Agency is not implemented as soon as possible, caused a great echo on the world agenda. During the last period of the Russia-Ukraine war, which has been going on for more than 2 years, both sides began to implement an offensive war strategy. The appointment of Colonel General Alexander Syrsky as Chief of the General Staff, along with the pressure of the Ukrainian army, which has conducted critical offensive initiatives and cross-border airstrikes to move the war inside Russian territory, over the past 2 months has greatly disrupted the plans of the Moscow administration. The steps taken by the Russian forces during this process, which intensified their counter-airstrikes to make them forget the crisis they were facing and the successive news of their defeats and to take revenge, did nothing but make Moscow the focus of criticism in world politics. In contrast to the attacks carried out by Ukraine on strategic military targets, the occupying Russian forces, which carried out bombings and UAV attacks on Ukrainian territory without distinguishing targets and contrary to the international law of war, also activated President Putin's nuclear threats, leading to the regional war reaching a global sphere of influence. As it is known, Zaporizhia has caused great controversy on the agenda of the whole world throughout the Russia-Ukraine war due to its hosting of the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. The occupying Russian forces, which have continued to increase the pressure on the Zaporizhia region since the first phase of the war, and have dragged the whole world step by step into a nuclear disaster due to the audacious attacks and operations they have organized in the process, signed one of their most irrational moves ever on the last day of September. Monday, September 30th, one of the 2 power lines supplying electricity to the power plant was disabled as a result of shots fired by Russian forces that carried out a major attack on the main substation adjacent to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Tuesday, October 1st, Ukrainian Energy Ministry officials, who shared the issue with the world politics in the early hours of Tuesday, one of the power lines supplying electricity to the occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was disabled after Russia's attack on the main substation in Zaporizhia. The power plant is once again on the verge of a power outage. Everyone was surprised by the report of the officials, who shared during the same statement that the energy workers were making an intensive effort to give the power plant full power. The power plant, which is currently under the control of the occupying Russian forces, had faced power outages many times in the past, as a result of attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure in accordance with Moscow's instructions. However, it is known that a targeted attack on the main substation will increase the size of the crisis, and the power plant, whose activity will come to a standstill, may become the center of a major disaster. Ukrainian Energy Minister Herman Halushchenko, who once again shared his concerns about this issue with the public and world countries, in an individual statement, said, "We demand the immediate implementation of the decision of the International Atomic Energy Agency and the return of the occupied nuclear power plant to the control of Ukraine. The safe operation of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is possible only under the control of Ukraine." Immediately after the statement of the Ukrainian minister, the Ukrainian state nuclear energy company Energoatom stated that there were 8 complete power outages at the power plant during the invasion attempt by the Russian army. Sunday, September 15th, the discussions about the fact that the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is under great threat were rekindled with the statement made by the officials of the Ukrainian National Resistance Center. During this statement, Ukrainian officials claimed that the occupying Russian forces were continuing their activities to deploy military personnel to the Zaporizhia region and around the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, store ammunition and explosives. Following the same statement, a claim made by Ukraine on September 24th, criticizing the International Atomic Energy Agency's ignoring of this fact, increased the question marks in the minds. Speaking during a United Nations Security Council meeting in New York on September 24th, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia was preparing to target 3 different nuclear power plants in Ukraine. Zelensky stated that Kiev has proof and evidence of Russia's plans. If Russia is ready to go this far, it means that nothing you value matters to Moscow. In addition to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant under Russian occupation, it is known that Ukraine has 3 other nuclear power plants under its control. 2 of them are the Rivne and Khmelnytsky nuclear power plants located in the west of the country. The last nuclear power plant under Kiev's control is the Pivdenukrainsk power plant, located in the south of the country. Russian forces, which have already further increased attacks targeting electricity infrastructures throughout the country, are bringing with them the footsteps of global chaos with every step they take to stop the flow of electricity to these nuclear power plants. However, the fact that the main substation supplying electricity to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was targeted by Russian forces on the last day of September clearly shows that Moscow will decide to eliminate this nuclear power plant in the occupied region if necessary. Do you think that the warnings of Ukrainian Energy Minister Halushchenko, who interpreted these events as indications that Putin and his team are preparing to activate threats of nuclear war, will convince the International Atomic Energy Agency to transfer the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant back to Kiev's control? The main reason for the vast majority of the audacious steps Russia has taken recently, especially the attack on the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, which led to a major crisis, is that Moscow is losing its influence on the battlefield more and more every day. Russia, which suffered the biggest territorial loss since the Second World War after the Kursk operation launched by Ukraine on August 6th, felt the impact of the war quite closely when the roles changed in an instant. In addition, the fact that military air bases, logistics infrastructures, and other strategic points in many regions of Russia, including the capital Moscow, have become the target of attacks organized by Ukraine with UAVs, has further complicated everything. In a critical statement on the issue in August, the last U.S. ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker, said that the Russians could not manage both the war and the attack at the same time, and Moscow would have to make a decision. Looking at today, the increasing aggression of the Russian forces shows that Moscow's decision is to continue to implement the offensive strategy. However, this strategy also leads to claims that the average monthly loss of manpower exceeds 30,000, and the Russian army will not have the opportunity to act in the future, when inventory casualties have become a major problem. The Moscow administration, which has failed to stop the increasing pressure and effective interventions of the Ukrainian army, which has been demonstrating an admirable self-defense struggle for more than 2 years with the support provided by the Western Bloc countries led by the United States, has started making more irrational decisions every day, making more irrational decisions than before, and shouting a global catastrophe such as a nuclear war. Currently, the Russian authorities, whose biggest fear is the possibility of the US-led Western Bloc granting Ukraine permission to use Western weapon systems in attacks against Russia, have begun to implement a war management that is more destructive and contrary to international law than ever in this fear and panic. The comments of political experts and war analysts who predicted that Russia would again be the party to pay the heaviest price for this process attracted great attention around the world. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his team continue to demand that the Western Bloc lift restrictions on